I'm Natalia Brusilowski. I'm a member of Theater Action Group. I'm a theater person, a theater educator, a director, a producer, and an entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Sheila Gaskins, and I'm an actress, director, writer, humanitarian, and I like to facilitate things.
And I'm Brian Francois. I'm a member of T.A.G, and I'm a theater educator, director, theater maker. Well, T.A.G was founded in 2006 via a workshop that people all across the city attended for 6 weeks, and was focusing on something called Theater of the Oppressed, which was a system of theater usage created by a guy named Augusto Boal in Brazil. And it was all about creating space for dialogue as a precursor to action for people who were disenfranchised, disempowered, peasants, workers, anybody who was trying to organize and change things in Brazil at the time. And of course, Boal took it all around the planet. People adapted it, changed it, used it for all of their purposes. But at the heart is theater making, storytelling, and even using our bodies to dialogue and discover things that we're aware of and not even aware of by playing together as a precursor to creating stories and pieces that frame problems that we're trying to find solutions to. And it's about participation. Everybody takes action. Everyone can propose solutions. So he has something called form theater. So after that course, T.A.G was founded with a group of people who wanted to keep doing this, but including other forms, other ideas, other methodologies. But I would say at the center of what we still do is creating space for dialogue. Theater can hold multiple perspectives at the same time. And it's about listening for understanding about someone else's story, and then you might shift as a result of what you might have heard, or sharing your voice, sharing your story, and being empowered by it.
And the bottom line, pretty much dialogue is two people talking, but monologue is one person talking. So you have peace when there's two, and you have voices and it's leveled. But if somebody is dictating to you, telling you what to do, that's not a dialogue. Dialogue is two.
Yeah, and when we facilitate and we hold the room, whether it's for a performance or for a workshop, we usually say that we refer to the wisdom of the audience. So we're not there to tell anybody anything. We're not there to indoctrinize anyone. Really what we're there to do is to just hold the space, play some games, and through that game playing, through that play, things come out. And there are many truths that are held in the same room. Yes, and they're dialoguing.
Yeah, you're the expert in your own life.
Yes.
Exactly. And the same thing goes with when we make theater. It's the folks that are there that are making the theater, for the most part, out of their own lives.
Originally, it was a system, Theater of the Oppressed was for folks who were marginalized, who didn't have access, who were on the fringes, who were disempowered. So it's a form of critical education, popular education in community to figure out what we want to change. So therefore, steeped in justice. My definition with that is access. How do we access story? How do we give people access to their own power and voice? So all of that leads to some form of empowerment that might look like justice eventually.
Yeah, and giving people the power to frame their own stories, exactly, through the theater and through telling their own story.
Why not? I've been doing this type of work ever since I was 14. And so I learned at an early age that theater really can change lives. As you take on a character, or as you see a scene, or as you look at something in a different perspective, that's theater. And theater has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it just has all the qualities that you need in real life. So this is what do they call it? Something for real life. What is
rehearsal?
Rehearsal for real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing about theater, it is a social art. It is a community, a temporary community coming together, negotiating power, making decisions together, analyzing material and ideas, and it's human. It's personal. It's vivid. There's aspects of empathy involved in when we see a story or a narrative play out on stage that's real. And I think that's ultimately what we respond to when it is culture, things that make us feel, sense, that are vivid, alive, and human. And theater is inclusive of all of those aspects of art making that lead to change. Real quickly, when people are fearful of change, very often it's a story or seeing someone who's done the very thing or overcome the obstacles that might be the source of fear keeping you from that change. And so art making, culture, theater specifically, is what human beings need to envision possibilities.
Well, most recently, we've been dealing with the issues of race and white privilege. That is something that is an overarching theme to our last couple of years of work for most of the groups that have invited us to work with them. We've been talking about white privilege. We've been exploring racial passions. Before that, we also, T.A.G has dealt with issues of immigration as well, unemployment, the recession, just feelings of worthlessness and worthiness, and where that comes in to play in this society in general.
I think we worked on a project of forced relocation, housing issues in Baltimore City. We worked with an organization that was trying to figure out how to get a fair shake with some of those aspects, and theater was the catalyst for that dialogue to figure out what they wanted to do. Just real quick on the racism piece or anti-racism work, that came from T.A.G realizing before we could go out in the community and do a whole bunch of work in Baltimore City, we actually had to look inward, and we committed to 6 to 9 months as a group about 3-4 years ago to doing our own internal work around racism within the group before we felt we were even ready to go outside and work in the city. And I think that that work has just continued. It takes commitment and dedication because it's a long arc bending toward some kind of justice around racial equality issues or anti-racism work. So that's where we are right now.
I also want to add that with all of the dialogues that we have, sometimes what we say is that we have difficult dialogues in a fun way. And theater is a great catalyst for that because we get to use character. We get to create different characters, and sometimes it's so much easier to tell the truth through a character like a puppet or through a different character altogether than try to find the words from within yourself. Sometimes it's just easier that way, and then we can play that way and more truth comes out oftentimes.
Some of the other challenges that we face or are about to face is that some people don't know that they are not in a rut, or they don't know their privilege, or they don't know that they have everything and they need to share some of that wealth. So it becomes having a conversation with a privileged person without them being defensive. So what we try to do is just level the playing field and get people comfortable. You know, half the stuff we do is theater, but you were like, I didn't even know this was theater. I didn't know you could play. I didn't know you could be silly, and then you can tackle those topics. So I think some of the challenges is people identifying as artists, and they really are artists. And self-discovery is always a challenge. Particularly in Baltimore, I'm struggling with the haves and the have-nots. I say this conversation all the time. There are some people who have a whole lot, and then there are some people who don't have anything. And I don't think that's fair. So how do we get the haves to give up some of for the have-nots, or how do we get the have-nots to get to have?
And a lot of that conversation is also taking place with haves and have-nots in the same room doing theater together. And that has been one of my greatest joys in the work that we've been doing, is having folks in the room listening to each other, being able to comment on what's on stage, on whatever stage we create together, to really hear each other and listen to different opinions in the same room and understand each other better, so that the haves and have-nots aren't so far apart. Maybe we can bring them a little bit closer. That one of my greatest rewards also is just kind of piggybacking on referring to the wisdom of the audience, learning something every time I do something. I mean, I'm not there to necessarily teach anybody anything, and so oftentimes people, most of the time, every time, somebody teaches me something, and I go home more fulfilled with a lot more knowledge than I came into an activity. So I can bring the theater and the theater facilitation, and other people bring their wisdom and experience, and then we all go home with something different.
Right.